Hello, so I want to talk about the UFC Fight Night Serbia that took place yesterday, and it was a very good card because there were a lot of finishes on the card. There were 12 finishes, I believe. Um, the only fights that went to decision is Vologdin against Nikolic, although that was a very good fight. And then Rakic went also to decision, and that was it. And that was also, Michael Bisping said that that was a record for the UFC. 12 finishes is an all-time record, he said at the end. And so most of those finishes were also in the first round. There was one in the second round, Ludovic Klein. That was also a good fight. Right, and Bogdan Grad, of course, yes, Bogdan Grad finished Bozukia in the second round. Alright, and so this was really cool to see. It also started for me at a great time, 4 p.m. Because I'm in Germany, so this was awesome to see. The female fights at the beginning of the card were not so interesting going in because I don't know who these women are, but the fact that they finished very quickly is very good to see, and I also like that the UFC seems to place women now in the front of the cards. And there also seem to be less female fights. I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate statistically, but I have a feeling that this year not so many female fights have been booked, and the ones that, but maybe it's definitely the case that there were a lot of first round finishes with the women, and so maybe it just doesn't feel like there are as many female fights booked. But I like that because statistically speaking, the female fights don't lead to a finish quite as often, or don't exactly lead to a well, that's what the finish is true, but what's even more true, where the percentage is even more different, I would say, is that the female fights tend to be less entertaining on average. So I'm all good with the UFC reducing that a little bit, or placing that early into the cards, so that then we can have we can see the men fight, you know. In between those two fights were there was a fight between Jovan Leka and Alexander Popek. Popek is interesting to me only because of the fact that he's German, so there's not a lot of German fighters, in fact, really like what you would. I mean, there's like fighters who speak German. Bogdan Grad, for example, speaks also German, and I think Rakic speaks German at least a little bit. So there's German-speaking fighters in the UFC, but even among those, you don't have really anybody who is extremely prominent as a fighter, like, or extremely promising as a fighter, I would say. There was a moment where Nasrat Haqparast was very interesting because of his athleticism, his speed, and he was early on in his UFC career extremely successful defensively, like really impressively successful with his defense, and so there was a lot of potential there. But now it's hard to really believe that Nasrat can have a long, successful MMA career after getting knocked out like he did. But we will see. It's definitely the case that he has not developed as quickly or as much as I would have hoped, and I think a lot of other fans would have hoped. So yeah, Popek got kicked, and he got kicked, I believe, in the solar plexus. It looked for a moment as though he got kicked in the liver, but I think it was the solar plexus, and he folded, and essentially kind of quit. I mean, he folded. He couldn't stand upright anymore, and then the ref stepped in because he was only covering up. And there's not really too much to take away from that, in my opinion, because anybody can get hit like that and have their body fail them. And so it's not like getting chinned or having like an injury or receiving a huge cut, or there's no real weakness even exposed that you can trust, I would say, for Alexander Popek. So it's even though he looked bad because he, got destroyed, it's not like that really tells us that he's bad at fighting. You know what I mean? So not too much to take away from that. On either side, really. I mean, I didn't think Jovan Leka looked incredibly impressive up until that point. It seemed more like a bit of a coincidence that kick had such a effect, if I'm being honest. But, I would have to go back and watch it again, I think, in order to really judge the skill of either man. So we had Rebecki finishing Kyle Prepolek. Not too much to say about that. Also, this is kind of true for most of these fights. I don't really have too much to comment on them. I was happy to see Bogdan Grad win. It was a bit of a weird tap submission. Bazooka wasn't happy that the referee stopped, but he was caught, I believe, in an arm triangle, and it looked like Bogdan Grad was the better grappler throughout the whole fight anyway, and certainly he was the more successful grappler, and he had that arm triangle, and it got tighter and tighter, and he was looking to pass to the other side of Bazooka. He was actually successful to doing that during the finishing sequence. When the fight got stopped, he was able to pull his leg over to the other side, and Bazooka was being squeezed really hard, and he's not really in a great position, in my opinion, to complain too much about that stoppage, because it looked, I think, to just about anybody watching that as though he was about to get finished for real with the arm triangle. And so then on top of that, he also cannot really blame the referee for mistaking his double tap, which is what he did. He double tapped the leg of Bogdan Grad. He didn't. I believe that he didn't intend to actually tap in that moment, but it looked like a tap because his hand touched the leg and then went up and down again. So, that was kind of maybe unfortunate for him to have his hand bounce off Bogdan Grad's leg like that, but it looked like a tap to the referee, and you were in the kind of position where it looked like you would tap, or you might tap soon. So, yeah, I mean, that's honestly completely on you, I would say. Right? Like, how can you possibly complain about a referee seeing you in a tight choke about to tap, and then you doing something that looks like a tap, and then the referee stops? I mean, it's really it's really your fault, Dennis Bazooka. There's really not much you can do there, I don't think. Yeah. So Mark Volokdin, even though I believe that he didn't mean to tap, you know. So Mark Volokdin lost and he got beat up pretty brutally. And I think it's kind of um, a pattern now that is becoming very clear. Volokdin has had multiple hard fights now, really hard fights where he took a lot of punishment, and he's like extremely short. I think he's like, I don't know, wait a minute, let's see. Maybe that was a mistake to go on to his name. Maybe I was gonna. Yeah, so he's 160 centimeters. He's 5'3". This is an extremely short man. So maybe that has something to do with it. You know, his reach is only 65 inches. I cannot honestly tell you off the top of my head who else has a reach of 65 inches. I think that most bantamweights have a higher reach than that, a longer reach than that. The guy he fought, Nikolic, actually has quite a um, long reach, yeah, quite a good reach for his division. I think 72 is more the lightweight average than the bantamweight average. So yeah, he also fought a guy who's probably in terms of striking statistically superior, and when it comes to his body composition. And I think that since that is almost true for every matchup that Volokdin will have in the bantamweight division, given that he will probably most of the time be shorter and have a reach disadvantage, it's not looking good for him at all. You know, it's looking really, really bad, I would say. Right? I mean, you have to ask yourself, how much longer do you want to hold on to this dream, to this goal that you have, to this career path, if you are body composition wise extremely disadvantaged and get beat up a lot in fights with people who are in no real top position in their divisions, you know? I mean, it looks like this Borislav Nikolic is holding some kind of a belt, but we all know that it's not a UFC belt, it's some regional MMA belt. Although he does have an extremely impressive record, to be honest, now that I'm seeing that. Right, Brave CF is probably where he became champion. Won the belt, won a title fight, and defended the belt, it looks like. Although it seems as though then maybe he lost it. I know he won, but he fought in. So maybe he vacated the belt because it doesn't. Oh, he lost the belt, then he won it again, and then it doesn't say anything. So maybe he vacated the belt. Doesn't matter. Since he is not the only person that Volokdin has looked. I mean, he's never really looked bad. He looks really tough in his fights, but you don't want to always look tough in your fight. You know, you want to look flawless, impressive, superior, dominant, cool. And Mark Volokdin looks really tough. And there's not that much else to compliment him for. At least not if you're looking at the goal that he probably has in the UFC, you know, when you're looking at it through that lens, the lens of I want to be a champion, or I want to be a top 15 fighter or top 5 fighter to make a lot of money, obviously, right? Um, then it's not looking good for him at all. Not much to compliment other than his toughness, to be really honest. Then we have somebody. This is how you want to look. This is exactly how you actually want to look in your fights. You want to look like Michael Oliveira. He has never lost. Most of his wins are by finish, by knockout. He has beaten somebody, I think, in the Contender Series, and now Urban Elliott with a knockout in the first round. Was it the first round? Second round in the Contender Series. Okay. Yeah, and he looks incredible in terms of his physique. He even has a handsome face. He is 28, I think. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly where everybody wants to be. Um, I mean, he definitely has the potential to become a star if he is successful at fighting, simply because he looks really good. I mean, you have to be realistic about this sort of stuff. A large part of prominence for athletes is the way they look, and so he has definitely got the appearance of somebody that people want to pay attention to, want to watch fight. And so far he is performed like that also. It's difficult to judge how good he is really, because I haven't seen most of his other fights and I don't remember the Contender Series bout of him. But I mean, you cannot, even though this looks all very good, you also have to be a good nail if you want to be successful in the UFC. You cannot just be a good hammer, you know what I mean? So even though he's destroying these people are not really that impressive in terms of their fighting skill. I don't believe so anyway. His opponents have records of... So are these the opponents' records here? I think so. So apparently he fought a guy who was 0-0, who's never fought in his amateur bout. Never fought as a professional, probably, Then a guy who's 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3-2, 2-1, 4-1, 7-3. Now that's a step up, I would say. So the first fights up until Francisco Ataliba, there's really, I mean, you kind of have to assume that these guys are not good at fighting at all, because they don't have any kind of record that is impressive. I mean, this guy, they all have losses, but they've fought very few times, right? So their percentage of winning is extremely low. And then you have this guy here, undefeated Elder Diaz, but he also only had 2 fights. And he got instantly slapped, so it's not really an indicator that this was a good opponent, you know what I mean? And then you get a little bit more interesting. So this Eduardo Alencar in November 2023, at least he has 4 victories and 1 loss, so this guy can at least fight, I mean, I think we can grant that. He's capable of fighting. We don't know if he's good though, Then he fought a guy 7-3, or maybe 7-2. I don't know if the loss is. No, it's not, because he fought undefeated guys. Okay, so 7-3. Again, a lot of wins this time, but also 3 losses. And then Aldo Pereira in LFA, also not really, 11 victories, but 7 losses, 2 draws or no contests. So the level of his competition is not, he's not fighting high quality opponents. So we don't know we don't know what's gonna happen when somebody's actually capable of fighting back. You know what I mean? If maybe he has a glass jaw, and then all of this dreaming and hoping and guessing and predicting that he's gonna be a star, all of that is gonna be instantly shattered um, when he gets slapped. It's like, imagine Cody Garbrandt. Think about Cody Garbrandt, good-looking guy, super quick, super cool knockouts. He had some trouble with his reputation, I would say, but um, if he had if he had performed in all of these critical fights, he might have become a star. Just based off his looks. And instead, he got destroyed. He got exposed and destroyed um, over and over and over again for being chinny. And so this might happen to Michael Oliveira. Okay, moving on. Then we had Ludovic Klein fighting Tufik Musayev. There's something odd about the way Tufik Musayev looks. He has such a strange appearance. He looks like some guy of like a Frank Frazetta painting. I don't know if you know who that is. He made, let us Google Frank Frazetta. He looks like some kind of like barbarian orc or some shit. Frazetta, not an orc, yeah, maybe not an orc, but he does kind of look like a bit of a creature. Like this is the kind of Frank Frazetta stuff. It's not an insult really, because Frank Frazetta draws like super epic characters, but they're not really humans exactly. Oftentimes they're more like kind of humans, but not really. This would be a good example. This guy here, and so he did art for Conan the Barbarian. This guy here, I mean, I guess this is a human, but he has a weird appearance. He's maybe I can't show the breasts here. I'm not entirely sure about that. We will see. He has like a green skin. I'm very irritated because I don't know if I could show the naked woman. Shit, should not have done that. Well, I'll try it anyway. We'll see. But I will, yeah, fuck it. We'll just continue and see. I mean, it's a painting, right? So, I don't know. We'll see. Ludovic Klein, he didn't look, I mean, he looked like he was just about to do some work himself in that fight. He looked like he was starting to actually hit Tufik Musayev hard back. He was getting into the fight, but it wasn't. He didn't come into the fight quickly enough, and so he got knocked out, and it was a good finish. Very, very cool fight, honestly. Yeah, then we had submission. I don't even remember this fight, to be honest. Gilbert Urbina, yeah, those are not that interesting. Robert Valentin, also not too interesting. Yeah, I guess the next fight that was sort of interesting to talk about, or would be interesting to talk about, is Alexander Rakic beating Tybura. But only really what I want to say is that this was not an exciting performance at all. And he played it really safe. And I'm not a fan of that kind of fighting style. I've been saying that when like Islam Makhachev and Chimaev fight, or their performances against JDM and Dricus Duplessis. I don't like that. I want to be entertained. I like fighters who take risks, who decide that they want to give a show. Um, that being said, I do respect it. I respect the decision to fight safe. Um, and I would probably do the same thing if I was a UFC fighter. But I'm also judging from a fan perspective, right? I'm looking to be entertained, and I don't enjoy this kind of fight style. So, fuck Alexander Rakic for doing that. Um, Crazy that the crowd was cheering him on, um, and shouting his name. They were very hungry for this kind of event. Um, I think that European fans are really good anyway. I mean, when they were in Germany the last time, the crowd was amazing. We had an incredibly boring event, um, but the energy was great there. So, yeah. Well, anyway, so Rakic played it safe. Have to respect the choice, have to say that um, when it comes to just getting paid and not taking or taking as little damage as possible, he did the right thing, I guess, right? Because it wasn't that close. It did seem pretty clear that he would win, and so, yeah. But I don't like it, and I hope that that changes. Okay. I mean, moving forward, that he's gonna have opponents that can force him to fight or decide that he wants to really fight. But I mean, then again, I guess Rakic has experienced getting beaten up, like actually getting beaten up. Uh, so I have a little bit more understanding for him in that regard, because he's been affected by standing the whole time and taking risks. He's actually gotten beaten up for it. So by Yuri. So yeah. Navajo Sterling beat Jan Blachowicz. This was very sad for me. I'm a big fan of Jan Blachowicz. I don't know why exactly. I liked some of the things he said, and I like the way he looks. And his birthday is my birthday also. So, although he's of course older than me. But there's something that I just find charismatic about Jan Blachowicz. Maybe it's the fact that he walks into, like, maybe it's like he walks into like fantasy music, like dark fantasy, The Witcher music, this kind of stuff, and he plays those games, and I can really appreciate that, because those are some great games, Skyrim, The Witcher, and this kind of stuff. And there's a bit of you can sort of, if somebody's into The Witcher and Skyrim, this kind of stuff, that's a kind of person that also probably likes The Lord of the Rings, which is a great trilogy, and likes the sort of medieval fantasy world and actual history, medieval history, and knights and swords and this kind of stuff. And I love that kind of shit. And so that's probably why I like Jan Blachowicz, because he has that ancient warrior sort of appreciation in his heart. And I do have that also. And Navajo Sterling, I mean, I guess there's something. He did walk into Heilung, which is also like a Nordic barbarian type music band. They make some good songs, and it was a good song he walked into. Um, actually wanted to listen to that in the gym today, but I forgot. Um, yeah, so I guess he has maybe the same kind of appreciation for this type of stuff, possibly. Um, but I don't know, and I don't really care that much to find out. I mean, I'm not like following Jan Blachowicz closely every interview he gives. I watched it here and there. I was interested to listen to him speak before this fight, and he said that he just to check like his mentality going into the fight, and he said that he just enjoys fighting. He loves it. He does it as a hobby, and so he wants to continue. And I respect that in his case because he, even though he has not, he has quite a few losses. I don't think he has a lot of devastating KO knockout losses, right? Let us see. 3 losses by KO TKO. Let's see. So this one, obviously, he did take a big strike to the head. Multiple strikes, but one really big one. Then he lost. Thiago Santos knocked him out, but that was forever ago. That was 7 years ago. Man, the day before his birthday. That's interesting. Oh, he seems to fight. He seems to enjoy fighting before his birthday, because he also had a fight on the 15th of February. But I can, like, that makes sense to me because you want to. Yeah, there's another February fight. But he also has some March fights, so maybe not. Maybe it's just the way that it's being offered, but I would think that fighting right before your birthday is like a good thing. Although maybe at that point, at a certain point, you just stop giving a fuck anyway because aging doesn't really. It's just a number that changes, and the day is just the same as any other day. I don't know. Whoever cares. So he did get finished by Thiago Santos. And then I guess this is a TKO. In 2011, he suffered a TKO, a retirement. So he wasn't even like actually finished in a sequence then. He quit on the stool. Maybe due to exhaustion, but it would count as a TKO. So that's 15 years ago. He retired. And then Thiago Santos, who is like a super athletic, quick, dangerous fighter back in the day, was he at least? He knocked him out 7 years ago. And he didn't even go to sleep completely. Like he fell down badly and then he got hammer fisted, I think. But I don't think he was out for much, for a long period. I think he was. If he went out only for very few seconds. If that. Microseconds, maybe even. And now he got finished again one time. Also didn't go out cold, so to be honest, even though he is 43, I actually don't really see a reason for him to quit yet. Because he's not taking that much damage in these fights. Now he did, you don't want to have this repeat. So if his next fight looks exactly like this, then I would recommend for him to ask the question, can you retire now? Because he took some brain trauma here again, and you lost again, and these guys are not. His next opponent will be probably even lower ranked than Navajo Sterling, who was already barely in the top 15. Maybe Jan will fight another top 15 opponent, but still, like if he loses again like this, then you really have to, I think, ask the question, maybe he could have another fight after that, actually. Because I don't think, even though he did get finished by knockout here, again, this wasn't the worst knockout you could receive. I mean, this isn't half as bad as what this Mark Voloktin on this card is suffering, and he's not. He hasn't even risen up the rankings at all, and is only 26 years old. But this guy is taking way more damage than Jan Blachowicz is, right? So, yeah, I mean the cumulative damage that he's been taking with all of these fights, because of course, even if he wins or loses by decision, he's not exactly. He's still taking damage to the head, but he can still compete and he can still win. And he did crack Navajo Sterling too with a jab, I think. So I think he can just continue. Also, I mean, if he actually loves it, and I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, he has that, as I spoke about, that like ancient warrior type of mentality. He's probably really excited to fight, if that's true. Yeah, if he loves it, he can just fucking continue. I mean, because he's already not got the best brain anymore. That's true. That's just clear now, after all of these years. So, of course, retiring now would be a good thing if he can manage to be happy and financially free and this kind of stuff. He said that he has enough money. And it's probably not gonna, it's not gonna go on for very much longer, I don't think. Because now he is starting to get, like, dominated. So, but maybe he can get 2 or 3 more wins, have another 2 years as a fighter. And I don't see why you would really tell him to quit now. You know what I mean? It wasn't that bad. Okay, yeah, and then there was the main event. And I really liked the main event's result because I just think Uros Medic is an exciting fighter and I like watching him. And Daniel Rodriguez has had some good fights too. And I guess I wouldn't have been too unhappy if he had gotten an early finish. But given that Medic won and he was the hometown guy and he got such a cool finish, the combination. And then he also, I found it really, I found his post-fight interview really cool. I mean, he was very, it seemed like it was very well thought out, or he chose his words carefully in that moment, and it was an emotional interview, and I can sort of put myself in his position, leaving the home country for like 10 years. What must that be like to come back to it and then to, be celebrated for getting an instant KO victory by the people of your country that you haven't seen in like 10 years? That must be emotionally very overwhelming. And he did say that he wanted to cry. So I felt that. And so I'm happy that he won because of that. And maybe Daniel Rodriguez would have had some great post-fight interview himself, given that he was in jail, I heard, before this. I don't know why he was in jail, actually. But I don't think it was that bad if they give him a main event. Yeah, alright, so that's it. I understand also the complaint of Daniel Rodriguez with the stoppage. Or the disappointment, but I also think that the stoppage wasn't that bad. Yeah, so great event overall. This is exactly how these events should look like. Every event should look like this. There wasn't, I will say this, even though it was cool that almost every fight went gotta finish, even though there were some really, really interesting moments, some cool moments, some exciting moments, some emotional moments. It had everything you wanted, but we do also know that sometimes MMA is completely magical. And sometimes MMA delivers moments that are so insane that they will affect you for weeks and weeks and weeks after that. And this didn't happen here on this card. Like, there was no magic moment for me, even though it was nice. Everything was satisfactory for me as a fan. There was no real magic moment either, and so it cannot be rated a 10 out of 10 event in my opinion. Although of course those moments are magical because they're rare. Well, maybe that's not even actually true. Maybe they wouldn't have to be rare. Maybe it's just, yeah, it's not that the rarity makes them magical, it's that they're magical. And because of the true magical properties, they're not so common. Okay, I'm now going to end this video because I'm sliding into my mind too deeply, and it's not gonna end well. Yeah. It's actually really fun to do these videos like this because I don't have to do anything. I can just upload the recording straight up.